Hi guys, Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a faux quartz stone bowl. Okay, I'm just going to bring over some translucent, and I have not chopped this up. This is just straight off the block, as you can see. Let me just adjust that, there we go. So I don't want you to condition it or anything. We are going to be just working with it straight as it is, and that should be enough to make, I'm actually going to chop off one more just to make sure we have enough to make a bowl. Okay, and it really depends on how big you want the bowl, and that's going to dictate how much clay you're going to want to use. And this is Primo white translucent. You can use Primo translucent. The only difference is that this one in the shade has a very slightly blue hue, whereas the Primo normal translucent has a kind of yellow hue to it. And we're going to be using blue alcohol ink today, so I wanted to go with one with a blue hue. So I'm just going to continue chopping this until I've segmented it into a bunch of little pieces, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, and there we go. So now the next step is going to be to bring over some gold leaf. So you can see here, and I do sell this on my Etsy store if you're interested, but any gold leaf will work. So I'm just going to pop that to the side, because it will be easier to handle. Okay, and then I'm going to bring over a sheet or two. So just bring over one to begin with, and mix that in like so. Then move on to the next one, place on top, mix through. And you can use as little or as much as you want. Complete that too. I'm going to use one more. And you could mix leaves as well. You could use copper or silver leaf as well. Again, completely up to you. Just have fun. Okay. And then I'm going to work that through so that the metal leaf sticks relatively well. I'm not pressing hard because I don't want these pieces to stick to one another. I just want the leaf to be well attached to the clay. Okay, and I think that will do, because we're going to be adding gold paint later, so I don't think we need to add more leaf. Now I'm going to place that all into a plastic bag. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to take some isopropyl alcohol, and this is just so that it will help the ink flow. I don't want to spray too much. Any strength will work. And I'm also going to be taking a blue alcohol ink. Any blue will work. You can also use a different colour. Green works as well, quite well. But yeah, any colour you want. I'm just going to drip that in like so. Close up, keeping the air in the bag, and then shake it around, distributing that ink. Then I'm just going to apply a little more. Close that again, keeping the air in the bag. Okay, and there we go. Okay, then just open the bag, and I want you to leave that for about half an hour to let the ink soak into the translucent, and also so that the ink can dry a bit before we add our gold paint. Okay, so it's been drying for a while, and it's quite dry. Now I'm going to bring over some gold acrylic paint. Any gold acrylic paint will work for this. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the bag, and I'm going to pop some of that paint in there. Flip, do it on the other side. Okay, close that up with the air again. And then I just want you to shake that around. Okay, here we go. Then I'm just going to tip that out onto my ceramic tile so that it can dry. I'm just going to use this as a barrier between me and the paint, just to kind of flatten it out a bit. And then I want you to leave that until it is completely dry, and then we're going to form it into a cane. Okay, and this is pretty much dry. If you're having trouble waiting, like I did, you can always go in and run it around like this while applying a hairdryer to it. Just make sure that the hairdryer is not too hot. But yeah, this is pretty much dry. So now we're going to take that and we're going to bunch that together. And you can see that the paint cover is not complete, which is something that is important because I want these pieces all to stick together. And if you've got a really thick cover of paint, then you can find that the pieces sometimes don't stick together very well. So if you have that, you can always apply a little bit of liquid clay to this as well to help the pieces stick together. It is going to make sanding a little bit tricky, and it's going to make sticking the entire piece together properly a bit tricky until it's baked. But if you're worried about pieces not sticking together, that is something that you can do. There we go, so I'm just going to put that to the side and clean the tile. Okay, then once it's clean, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to start compacting it together to form a square or a rectangle. And I just want you to work on that for a while, getting all those pieces stuck together and to get it into a nice, smooth, well compacted piece. Okay, and this is what I have. Now it's not completely stuck together, it's going to be almost impossible to get that, but it's relatively well compacted together, and we're going to burnish it later once we form it into the shape of our bowl, so we'll be able to get it all stuck together properly then. So now I'm going to take a nice thin blade and I'm going to cut. And here is what the result will look like. So then I'm going to go up the length of the cane, cutting out slices that are all pretty much the same thickness as one another. They don't have to be perfect, but you want to get them as close as possible. And just remember to clean your blade between each cut, and I'll show you why now. Not sure if you can see there, but can you see that it catches a little bit of the gold leaf and paint and such? That's going to drag on your next cut, therefore giving you a less clean cut. So just wipe off your blade each time you do a cut, and you'll just find that you get a much cleaner result. Okay, and you can see we got a bunch out of that. So now we are going to form a slab. Now this slab you do not have to turn into a bowl if you don't want to. You can cut out earrings and pendants. You could make a collar if you wanted to. There are lots of ways that you could use this. I'm choosing to make a bowl today, but it really is completely up to you how you want to use this slab. So all you do is you're going to take your slices, and this is why I said to try to get them roughly the same thickness as one another, just because it will make this step easier. We're just going to take them and pop them all next to each other, and this is why I recommend reducing the cane or forming the cane into either a square or rectangle shape, because then they slot together nicely, whereas a circle would be much harder to get them all to fit together. And just pop them all together like so until you've used all of them up. Okay, and there we go. And now I have not applied the very end pieces of the cane to the slab, because I want to make a bowl out of this, and even if you were doing pendants and such, you would want it most likely to be double-sided. And so if you applied these ones, one side would have this edge on it, and that would mean that you'd have to do a fair amount of sanding, more than we're going to have to. So you can apply them, but just keep in mind that you're going to have to sand away that excess paint. So now we're going to do a very important step, and that's burnishing, where you're going to apply a piece of either greaseproof paper, or in this case plain printing paper, and you're just going to burnish the surface like so. You can use your roller as well. Do not roll across the surface like this, you want to rub it like so. It won't stretch the pattern all that much. It's just going to be sticking all those pieces together, getting it all pretty much the same thickness, and it's just going to clean it up and press all the pieces together, make it nice and clean and well stuck together. Okay, and there we go. Now I'm going to bring over a nice long hard blade, and I'm just going to pick that up carefully, and I can show you the front there. Apart from this one spot here, it is all completely burnished. However, if you look at this side, you can see that's going to need some sanding. That's just normal, nothing to worry about, but I want to give that side a burnish as well. So bring over another piece of plain printing paper and place this down on top of it. Okay, and then bring over another piece. The reason I didn't do this before was because we couldn't pick this up without the pieces falling apart on each other. So we're now going to do the second part of the burnishing, where we have it sandwiched between two pieces of plain printing paper. And we're going to do the same thing as we did before, basically running this up and down the surface, smoothing it out. Okay, and there we go. Now I'm going to bring over some cling wrap or glad wrap. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to have a beveled cut from our cutter. So just bear with me for a moment. Pop that over the surface. Trying to get it as straight with as few wrinkles as possible. Okay. There we go. You do not have to do this for the cutter to cut. I just want it to have a nice dome on the back. Okay, then place the cutter down like so. And then I'm actually going to use my acrylic roller to start pressing so that I get even pressure, just to make that first initial cut. And then I'm going to press with my hands, just because it's a pretty large cutter. This is my largest statement square. Okay, and you can see there that we're getting a good cut. I'm going to go in with my roller one more time. And this is just because I can't get enough pressure with my hands on such a large surface. So I'll just run the cutter over the surface like so, and that will make sure that I get a nice clean cut. Okay. And lift up. And I can see it, that's nice and clean. Then we'll lift the cling wrap off. And I'm just making sure that I'm actually getting that off the piece, because the cutter actually cut through the plastic wrap. There we go. And peel this up and off. And there's actually enough there that you could cut out earrings from it. There's a last little bit of plastic wrap there, that'll be off. There we go. And peel that gently up off the surface, and you can see that we have a very nice clean finish. I'm going to bring over my bowl of choice. This is what I'm going to be using to shape it. I'm just going to place that in, and let's see, is that deep enough? I'm going to get a more curved bowl. Okay, here's the bowl I've chosen. So I'm very gently going to be pressing in around the sides, like so. Just pressing it down to the bowl. Not pressing too hard because I don't want to form fingerprints. And if you have long nails, careful that you don't gouge the clay. Okay, let's see, do I like that? Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, then I'm going to pop that into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. Okay, and then once it has finished baking, now quickly before I say anything else, I reverted back to the previous pot that I had before because I thought that the curve on this was a little bit too harsh on the pot that I said I was going to bake in. So that's why it looks the way it does. So now this is the front, which I have not sanded, and I have dipped it in water, but you can see there how raised it is and that it's not exactly the cleanest. Then you have a look at the back here, and this is where I've sanded it. It's nice and smooth. You can see that there's a lot less cracks and such. I've also smoothed the edges so that we've got a nice rounded bevel on them. So now I'm going to show you how to sand the front. So all of that was done using a wet dry sandpaper on 400 grit. And once I've finished with 400 grit sanding the front along with the back, which I've done, I will go up to a 600, then a 800, and then a 1200. Then after that we will apply feet to the back of our piece. So what you're going to do is you'll support it in your hands and just start sanding like so. And you'll sand the middle, edges, corners, all of it like so. And what I like to do is I'll add a little bit of dishwashing liquid into the water. I actually do this by the sink so that I can dip this in and clean it so that I don't get a huge amount of this dirt. And yeah, I'll continue sanding that until it's nice and smooth. Then I'll go up through the finer grits. Then you must allow that to dry and then we can apply feet. Okay, and here it is once it's finished being sanded and once it's fully dried. So it needs to be fully dry before we move on to the next stage. And it might appear a bit matte at the moment. That's because we haven't done any buffing, which we will do later on once we've applied our feet on the bottom. So I'm just going to pop that off to the side, and I'm going to bring over our piece that we had left over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take that and bring it over a piece of paper. I'm going to burnish that onto my tile. This is mostly also to flatten it out so that it's one consistent size, or thickness I mean. Like so. And you could make different colour feet. I'm choosing to use this because first off I have the scraps anyway, and also I would like it to match the bowl. Okay, now that that's stuck onto the tile, I'm going to bring over my largest Kemper cutter tool, and I'm going to cut out 4 feet, like so. Okay, then I'm not sure if we're going to use it or not, we will have to see. But I'm also going to take my third thickest Kemper cutter tool and I'm going to cut out 4 pieces. Okay, and you should be able to lift that up relatively easily. Put that to the side. Okay, and then lift these up. If you're having trouble, you can always use your blade to lift them up. Okay. And just gently touch up around the edges if you need to. Like so. Okay, then I'm going to bring over the bowl. I'm actually going to move these off to the side as well. Okay, and I'm also just going to pop down a little bit of Kato translucent liquid clay. Not going to touch that right at this moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, and because they're still raw, and because we don't have liquid clay on this at all yet, it means that I can place them down, figure out where I want them to sit without worrying about them sticking to the clay. So don't apply liquid clay yet. We want to decide where these are going to sit, because I have to make sure that I get them centered. Okay, there we go. And I'm not even sure if we're going to need liquid clay, so we'll see. Now I'm going to apply these little guys to the bottom of the feet. Where's a piece of paper? I'm going to use a piece of paper to burnish these onto, or press them onto the bowl properly without getting fingerprints. There we go. Then take these and center them. Don't press them down yet, because I'm not sure if they're going to stay or not. I just pop them on so. Okay, and I am going to keep those, so let me just move this out of the way before I accidentally dip something in it, because I can just see that happening. Okay, so you don't need that. I'm going to bring over a piece of plain printing paper, and I'm going to first gently press these together, like so. And remember, at this point, if we mess up, you can always remove these from the bowl and start again. You're just going to be wasting the feet. You're not going to actually mess up the bowl, which is why we always bake first. And I place that down, and then in the center I will press it down evenly, and this is just so that our feet will sit correctly. Okay, then you'll bake it on the piece of printing paper for another full hour at pretty much recommended temperature, and that will make sure that everything is properly baked through. Then we will give this a burnish with, well, we'll give it a buff with our buffing wheel, pop some Renaissance wax on it to give it a really nice shine because we've done all the sanding, and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, and here we go, so you can see how that looks. Now I have debated on buffing it with Renaissance wax or giving it a finish with a spray varnish, and I've decided to go with the Renaissance wax. You can of course use a spray varnish if you want to, but I really want to maintain the stone look. So here's the Renaissance wax. I'm just going to scoop out a decent amount. Just run that over the edges, give it a good coat. And this is not necessary because we don't need to seal anything in. This is just because it will give the piece more of a shine than if we just buffed it on its own. Now keep in mind that you can buff, or excuse me, sand those feet on the back if you want to, but I find it quite unnecessary, and I find that you end up kind of messing up the back by doing that, so I've chosen not to sand it, but again, that's a personal preference thing. So I'm just going to go over and apply that Renaissance wax across the entire piece. Okay, and you can already see it, that has changed the colour up a bit. Then I'm going to bring over my Dremel 3000 with my buffing tool, which I sell. I don't sell the Dremel, but any rotary tool will work. And I am going to buff the piece. And there you can see how that has given it a sheen, and it will crisp up the colours. So go ahead and buff the entire piece. Be careful with these because the buffing wheel can catch on them, so just go gently and work around them. Don't forget the edges as well. Okay, and there we go. So you can see what a beautiful shine that has, and if you went to a higher grit with the sandpaper, you would get an even shinier finish. You can also see the veins. Let me see if I can catch that there. Hopefully you can see there that you can still see the veins of the pieces where they join together, and that's why I decided to go with a buffed finish rather than a varnish finish, because I wanted to keep those so that you could see them, because it kind of maintains that stone finish. You can see that this back is completely shined up, and I even gave these a little bit of a buff, and that turned out quite nicely. And yeah, you can see it, the entire piece is finished very well, and because we basically didn't add any backing clay and we made it out of one solid piece apart from the little, what do you call these things, the little feet in the back, it does look like a piece of stone. So that is basically it for today's tutorial. If you enjoyed it, please do let me know in the comments below, and if you'd like to support this channel so that I can continue making videos like this one, please do consider either becoming a member of the channel to support it, or you can become a patron where I post exclusive videos every single month, videos like this one or even more complicated, so please do consider checking that out, as it is greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.